Good morning, everyone. My name is Andy Hall. We're going to be doing news you could use to fight fascism. I saw someone in the comment section here on YouTube say, tell me that that's not a Confederate uniform. You know, I have to tell you something. If you have seen the thumbnail, then yes, that is a Confederate States of America, the CSA, a CSA uniform right there, everyone. And I think the person we're going to be talking about just proves the rule that if you don't understand history, then you probably don't understand science either. A high relationship there. Links in the description to the news stories below. Here we go. Paul Vaccaro, 53 of Titusville, Florida, anti-vaxxer and dead from COVID. Yes. Not only was he quite a vocal anti-vaxxer, but he was also hip deep, maybe up to his shoulders in terms of Confederate love for the Confederacy. Are there pictures? I have pictures. Was he a Trump supporter? Yes. Which means that if you don't understand history, if you don't understand science, I think personally that there's a good chance that you're a Trump supporter. But here we go. Let's dive into some of his social media posts to see what kind of person he was. Oh, when it all hits the fan, you'll want to be behind the men flying this flag. I don't think so. I don't think I want to be around people flying the stars and bars. Oh, yes, here is one of his anti-vaxxer, Paul's anti-vaxxer memes, comics that he showed, and there he is, making fun of Joe Biden. And you know what? I'm sure some of you out there have taken an exceptional amount of joy knowing that Joe Biden, Brandon, has been putting the screws not only to Donald J. Trump, but also to Vladimir Putin, right? That's a little bit of pleasure right there. I think that's giving my heart a little warmer, making me feel a little better. Something else from Paul Vaccaro. This is what tyranny looks like. The U.S. Navy to boot sailors who refuse COVID vaccine. You know, I have to tell you something. If you're running a military, if we can accept the fact that militaries are necessary evil in this world, then don't you want your soldiers not to get sick from a preventable disease that's highly contagious? But maybe in the Confederacy, they don't care about those things. All right. Yes, here is Paul, of course, being super excited with a picture by a hashtag Trump RVs. There he is with his superhero right there, Donald J. Trump. And last but not least, here we have a message about the departed Paul. Paul passed away on March 2nd, 2022. This might be from his loving wife. I believe it is. Think we are still in shock. This we will miss. Oh, it's his sister. This is what we will miss. How my brother-in-law, sister-in-law, that's a sister-in-law writing this. Paul Vaccaro loved his brother Mark Vaccaro and the fun we had on vacations together. We loved you so much and will always be in our hearts. Please pray for us and for his wife, Sherry Denai Vaccaro, and friends. Still don't believe it. What is there not to believe? There's a highly contagious, deadly disease spreading around the world. It's still an epidemic. It's still a pandemic right now. I don't think we've crossed the line into regular, back to normal again. And so this guy who doesn't take his vaccination, who refuses the vaccine, and somehow he caught this deadly disease and now he's dead. And somehow the clique around him is really super surprised at this. But offer all your thoughts and prayers, everyone. Not science, but you can offer thoughts and prayers for Paul Vaccaro's family. I do want to share with you before I check the comment section here on YouTube about thoughts and prayers, Christian nationalism, white supremacy, fascism. This particular short video pretty much sums up practically everything that we are against here on this show. And let's just show this quick little video, huh?
I'm not on Putin's side. I'm not on Zelensky's side. I'm not on Trump's side. I'm on God's side. God's side is the side of truth. It just so happens that right now, our President Trump is on the side of God. Also, believe it or not, so is Putin. Right before I came on here, this is what was sent to me. A Russian soldier, I even have his name and I can't give it. I'm sorry, I can't. Just research it. I'm sure it'll start coming out. Searching for bioweapons. There was him and a few of the other soldiers searching for bioweapons in central Ukraine, stumbled upon a child trafficking den, dimly lit, filthy bunker holding approximately 100 young boys and girls. He said they were terrified, huddled together, and when the flashlights went on them, their eyes were dilated because they've been in the dark so long. Sex trafficking den, and they're looking for bioweapons.
So there you go. That is obviously a Christian nationalist who thinks that Vladimir Putin is doing the work of God, and that once again spreading these QAnon theories that, hey, sex trafficking rings in Ukraine and the brave Russian soldiers fighting to save those children. Gonna check out the chat and see what y'all are up to this morning. And if you're watching on Twitter or on Facebook, you'll see that I'm interacting with people in the chat. If you want to join the community, join the conversation, please come on over to Laughing in Disbelief on YouTube. And there's also the after party after show that we do at 9:30. There's links to be on the panel below, and that's on our sister channel, the Naked Diner podcast. Good morning, everyone. I hope you all had a good weekend. Sean says the Confederates lost. They need to get over it. I agree, Sean, 100%. I just don't see that happening anytime soon. What's up, Phil Lister? Glad to see that you're here this morning. Scapegoat is scary goes, wow, the ignorance I grew up around never ceases to amaze me. It's like the ignorance is like that crappy Christmas present you got as a kid from that aunt or uncle, that you knew it was a crappy gift. It might be like tube socks, but you open up the present, you open it up, and then you realize, wow, this was a crappier gift than I could have ever imagined. That's what the kind of insanity that exists with QAnon, Trump supporters, Putin fetishists, lunatics. He's a Florida man, exactly. Paul Vaccaro there, who's now dead. Yes. Big Zebra says, I imagine someone in such a uniform, that was the Confederate soldiers' uniform, discussing their plans to repeal the 13th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. Yeah, I could see something like that. I'm sure that's just water cooler talk, right? All right. I think John Christian, hello, good morning, John Christian. They love their sex trafficking stories, don't they? They really do. It's like they have some kind of real fixation on genitalia in general, whether it's a sickening. It's some kind of psychological disorder that they have. And didn't you love? And this is what happens with a lot of these Christian personalities on YouTube or Twitter. They like to say, well, I would love to cite my sources. I would love to tell you the name of the Russian soldier, but I just can't do it. I just can't do it. You just look for it online. Do your own research. And I'm sure that that story will show up on Google, right? So what happens, and this is the insidious nature of this insanity, and these Christian nationalists, they are evil, but they're not stupid. They know if you start Googling things and finding stuff on Google, that story will rise up in the algorithm. So this is not a glitch of the system when they tell you to do your own research to look for this fake story. It is an intimate part of their scheme. That's what it is. All right. Let's do the next story. So we're going to get into some inside baseball here in the secular movement. But should we do the halftime tummy rub show first? Let's do the halftime tummy rub show. This is when we relax, take a breather before we go back into the insanity. I think that cat's slacking off, everyone. Someone should be talking to HR about him or her. Dave Silverman. What's Dave Silverman been up to? Dave Silverman used to be in charge, used to be the head honcho over at American Atheists, but what has he been up to? I'm glad that you've asked. He works for an august organization. Well, working might be, volunteering. I don't know. He's over at Atheists for Liberty. And what do Atheists for Liberty doing? What have they been up to? Well, let's take a look at what Dave Silverman, how he is spending his time.
We are welcoming in Dave Silverman of Atheists for Liberty. He is a 25-year atheist activist, TV, radio personality, victim of cancel culture, former woke leftist, he says, and now a libertarian. I'm so excited to have you on. I didn't get the chance to talk to you at CPAC, so I called you up and you were all too willing to come on and have this conversation with I called myself the Jesus freak of InfoWars, and you're like, hey, that's fine, I'll talk to you. So very cool on that. We're just talking about unity.
Dave Silverman on InfoWars, and just talking about the good work his conservative group, Atheists for Liberty, do. And now you may ask me, what's the main issue that Atheists for Liberty, what are they up to these days? Well, I took a look on their website, and it turns out that they're all about fighting vaccine mandates for atheists, right? So this is the hill that they're dying on, that they want to fight on, is making sure that atheists have the right not to follow the medicine, to follow the science. This is the thing that they're all about now. And Dave Silverman, victim of cancel culture, I would say that Dave Silverman is more of a victim of not being able to keep it in his freaking pants, right? And now he's promoting conservatism on InfoWars. So who else is on the board, or who are the other luminaries who are on Atheists for Liberty? I'm glad that you asked. And the reason why it's important to find out who is on the board, because these are the people working against the secular movement. These are the people who want to create a failed state here in the United States of America, right? Because conservatives want a government that is not functional. We have seen that over the last 40, 50, 60 years, that conservatives want a government that isn't functional so religious fanaticism can grow, so that oligarchs can grow power. And these atheists, minority of atheists, they have decided that they want to throw their hat in with the oligarchs and with the white supremacists. And so let's take a look at them. Gad sad. PhD. Not surprised about this guy. Peter Boghossian, proud member of Atheists for Liberty. Michael Shermer, accused perv. Michael Sherlock, not surprised there. And Ronald A. Lindsay, JD, PhD. Those are just some of the luminaries who have decided to take arms, not take arms. I'm being a little hyperbolic here, but they've decided to throw their hats in with conservatives to create or to help create a theocracy, because that's what happens when you're doing conservatism or big L libertarianism or even little L libertarianism, is that religion succeeds in failed states, right? You look at governments that have strong governments, that have good social safety nets, like Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Finland, Germany, France, Canada. They don't have a lot of religiosity there. And that's the thing that Atheists for Liberty are fighting against, to have a functional government so they can have their freedoms while the rest of the country descends into chaos. Jobs well done, Atheists for Liberty. Yes, Silverman is a bad sellout. Sango, yes, indeed. I would agree. Good morning or good afternoon, Wild Eden. Flying the colors I see of Ukraine. You haven't heard of Silverman? Yep, he was quite the personality for quite a period of time. And there were quite a few rumors about Mr. Silverman's behaviors, even before he got into the trouble bubble. Yes, imaginary God. Dave has lost his mind. Good morning, Marmaduke Scarlet. All right. So I think I caught up. Oh, no, Shermer. Yeah, Shermer's on that. He's on the list too. What's up, Carolyn? McMichael. I hope I pronounced that right. It could be McMichael. I don't know. Okay, so that is our friend Dave Silverman. And I hope he just wakes up one day and figures out he's just on the wrong side. You know, on the wrong side of the issues. Let's take a look here at our last story. And this, of course, has to do with the Ukraine and Russia. Off the presses, of course, you probably have heard this story over the weekend, in that oil, and gas, of course, is a main way. It's gas that, Russia gets its money. And so the United States and Great Britain are thinking about putting sanctions on Russian oil, not buying Russian gas, and that's pretty significant. The sanctions so far have been creating real pain in the Russian state with oligarchs. You just have to take a cursory look on the news cycle, and you'll see Russian oligarch yachts being seized. We know that Russia's central bank, their gold assets have been seized or frozen, in international banks, not a small amount of money. And so that's one of the big news stories that's just breaking now, is that the United States and Great Britain, they're thinking about putting sanctions on not buying Russian gas, or should I say putting sanctions on Russian gas, and the rest of the Europeans are not being too cool with that because they're addicted to Russian gas. But it doesn't have to do about fossil fuels that much. This is more about Ukraine calls Russia's proposed evacuation routes unacceptable. More talks planned on Monday. Link to this story is in the description below. Russia's military said it would hold fire and open humanitarian corridors in several Ukrainian cities starting Monday to allow citizens to flee, but it continued to pummel cities with multiple rocket launches that hit residential buildings. Ahead of a third round of talks planned for Monday, the Russian Defense Ministry said a ceasefire would start in the morning and safe passages would open for civilians from the capital Kyiv, the southern port city of Mariupol, and the cities of Kharkiv and Sumy. Some of the evacuation routes, however, would funnel civilians towards Russia or its ally Belarus. unlikely destinations for many Ukrainians who would prefer to head towards countries in the western and southern borders. Ukrainian Deputy Prime Minister Irina, I'm not going to try to pronounce that last name, I'm sorry, called the proposed evacuation routes to Russia and Belarus unacceptable. Belarus is a key ally of Putin and served as a launching ground for the invasion. Yes, so the Russians are saying, look, we're going to have evacuation routes. But guess what? You're going to go from the frying pan into the fire. You're going to go from wherever you are to being basically held hostage in Belarus or in Russia. But what would you expect from Vladimir Putin? The Ukrainian government is proposing 8 humanitarian corridors, including from Mariupol, that would allow civilians to travel to the western regions of the Ukraine where there is no Russian shelling. Providing evacuation routes into the arms of the country that is currently destroying yours is a nonsense, said UK Europe Minister James Cleverly. It wasn't immediately clear if fighting would stop behind the areas mentioned or when the ceasefire would end. Hopes were dim that the last round of talks would yield any breakthroughs. And if you don't know about the current, I saw this on the news just before the show started, the latest surrender terms that the Russians are giving the Ukrainians, of course, is that the Ukrainians demilitarize, that they recognize that Crimea is part of Russia, that the Ukrainian government recognizes the independence of the 2 breakaway regions in eastern Ukraine. But in the latest list of demands, there is nothing about a change of government. That's what I heard on Bloomberg News this morning. So the sanctions might be taking a bite, as well as the strong resistance of the good people of Ukraine. And of course, we covered this last week. The nation, NATO, is sending shoulder-mounted rockets, weapons, other weapons. And now, I don't know if you heard this over the weekend, is that there might be aircraft going into Ukraine from NATO countries. So Russia is feeling the bite, which is positive. And, once again, everyone, I just want to point out the obvious. A defeat of Putin is a defeat for Trumpism. A defeat for the enemy abroad is a defeat at home for them, too, at the same time. All right, I'm checking out the chat here. Yes, families are being shot as they attempt to flee through the humanitarian corridors, indeed. Let's see. Here's a big secret: Russian government's lie. And yeah, and it's true that all governments are going to tell mistruths, but let's be serious that they are not. We have to be careful about false, to falsely put things in the same put countries in the same category. For example, I wouldn't put Switzerland in the same category as Russia in terms of telling lies to its people. Let's see what else is going on here in the chat. That the Russians thought they could face any Western army is shown to be a joke. Yeah, well, the Russians have had a lot of success against people who can't fight back. Looking at at the Syrian rebels, so the Russians have had a lot of success against people who aren't well armed, right? But once again, Putin is doing something similar to what Hitler did in 1941. Putin thought that he could just enter the country, kick the door in, and the whole country would fall apart. That's what Hitler thought about the USSR in 1941. And that was obviously not true then. And the idea that Putin could just put in forces, could just make, just kick the door in and the entire Ukrainian government would fall apart and people would welcome him in with open arms is hubris to, I don't know. It is crazy. It's on par with Bush the Younger thinking that he could invade and occupy Iraq. That's the level of hubris we're talking about here. Right, exactly, Chechnya. Yeah, so the Russians are able to do great, do quite well. The Russian military is able to do quite well against people who don't have weapons or have they don't have Stinger missiles or javelins. yeah, they do a banner job against them. All right, everyone, running to the end of the show. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Oh, man. I'm going to say this. John Delancey remarked that if Putin was so sure Ukraine was part of Russia, he had forgotten the most important history: never march on Russia in winter. Interesting. All right. Thank you, everyone. There's no ads. Please contribute any way that you can, or share the video. That's also fantastic. 9:30. We'll see you for the after party, after show. Links in the description. Take care.
Oh, it's okay. What?